Hi everybody, this is the castle wall segment of it. Originally, I was going to do a reenactment on how I made the castle walls with just a regular piece of cardboard, not rounded off. But what happened was when I finished making this piece, it was too short. So I have to redo some of it. And here's the piece that you're going to see in the rest of the videos. There will be this video, one of the videos showing you how I created it, because I'm going to be adding this piece here like this and taking out this window and putting another window here. So instead of a reenactment, I am going to actually do how I did this. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you, and you'll see it on the rest of the videos, especially when I'm painting it, how I did this trim that I sit on the top of the bricks. This is a Tim Holtz Alterations, and I think it was called Heritage Lace. I'm not really sure. It's a really long die cut. As you can see, you can't even see the full thing on my screen. Maybe if I moved it up a little bit. And it has, let's see, 1, 2, 3 different pieces that were meant for you to die cut. But if you take a piece of lightweight cardboard, and I use Trader Joe pizza boxes, cereal boxes. This happened to be one of those United States Post Office mailing envelopes that I received. Make sure that you use the negative space. This is a cute one. This is a cute little trim. This from here, this is the piece you're supposed to cut out, but here's a nice little wavy trim if you want to use it. So is this. So even though there's only 1, 2, 3 official die cuts on this, you can use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 different shapes that you can use once you cut this through your Big Shot machine. Okay, now I just wanted to show you this one before I begin with trying to get all these little pieces over here together. This trim, which was here, this trim, which was this one right down here, is what I used on the bottom right here. I doubled it up. I had a lot of these pieces because I was cutting so many of these. I doubled it up, I glued it together, but only on one of them did I take out the little pieces. So it gives it, and I'm hoping that you can see this with my camera. Yes, you can. It gives it a little depth. One, I didn't take the little piece out, and the other one I did. So it gives it a little more texture to add to this piece. Again, I'll be talking about this a lot. When you're doing black and white predominantly as your color scheme, or any 2 colors, or even any one color with different shades of one color, you have to add a lot of texture so that it doesn't just look so monochromatic. Oh, here you can see the other side of how I am filling in this window. I'm going to cut this window out so that I can extend it. I'm waiting for my Dremel tool to come in the mail today so I can start that, so I can show you how I did this piece. For the record, and I know I probably say this a lot in the video, this paper mache I put on a wire mesh that I stapled, and again I'll go over it more when I'm doing it. This stuff is tough. I mean, it's like impossible. Trying to get this one layer off, I was using my pliers, pulling it off. I have to tell you, my hands still hurt from trying to get that done. And just because I'll give you a sneak preview in case you didn't look at the candles yet. There they go. I love them. Okay, so let's get back to the metal railing that's on top of the castle walls. Now I have 4 strips, and they're really rather flimsy right now. Let me put this. But once you start gluing these together, it's going to get really quite thick. Paper towel. And I'm sort of sloppy with this part of it. Okay, let's see. This one, let's start with this one, because this one already has some of the pieces out. And also, it's a good idea to figure out it's amazing how the die cut isn't exact. So I don't remember how I ran these through. I really should have made note of that, because it's a little, it goes a little bit off, but that's okay because I'm going to be putting a rust finish on it. So I'm just putting a light coat of white glue. This probably would be easier if I used a paintbrush. I'll get this out of my hand. And if I had wax paper underneath here, so I didn't get glue all over my cutting mat, but it wouldn't be the first time I got glue all over my cutting mat. So in effect, what you're doing is laminating pieces of, there goes my scissors again, that's the second time. You'll see it happen another time in one of the videos. It scared the heck out of me. My scissors are, they're, you shut them and they're spring loaded, and if you don't shut them really tightly, they always pop open. Now, it doesn't exactly line up, and guess what? It doesn't matter, because once you paint it black and you put the rust effect on it, it's just going, once again, to give a texture, depth, like it's rusting away. It's not that big of a deal. There's a lot of other things that you have to get stressed out about, and this is not one of them. We strive for perfection. I really do. I don't want you to think I'm a sloppy crafter and that I am not trying to get things perfect. If I wasn't trying to get things perfect, believe me, I wouldn't be adding another 2 inches to the top of that castle wall, because it's sort of setting me back into the whole project. But in striving for perfection, there is a little wiggle room, if nothing else. As long I'm making, every piece I'm making, I am making to the best of my ability. This is not going to fall apart, but I am not a watchmaker. I am not making something that demands that I be absolutely precise. I'm giving myself a little wiggle room so that it looks more real. I have a little bit of a pet peeve. And I'll do it in a more positive way. Now, I think I used 4 the last time, when I made this to go on top of it, because once I had to take off the top pieces, this I had to take this apart too. I think 3 is just as good. Let me see. Getting back. So, in a positive note, some of my 3 is fine, I think. Some of my favorite doll makers are the ones that make the doll look like she's living in the clothes. Um, Everybody has different opinions on how they feel about this, but if you have like the Barbie dolls and everything is just perfect and there's no wrinkles in the fabric, it to me it looks fake. Now there are many beautiful dolls that are made with their clothes just so. For my particular taste, I like when I make a doll to make it look as real as possible, and we all don't walk around in perfectly pressed items. Now this is going to curl a little bit, which is fine because it will help it when it's shaping to the top of the castle wall. It's just a little, since you haven't seen the castle wall yet, because that's coming, it's just a little bit of a decorative edge. So there will be one more segment where I am making the extension, and then there's like 4 or 5 segments on me painting it. Now you're not going to see me paint the new area since I went in depth with painting this originally. So maybe at the end I'll just pop in and show you. Um, if you go and look at the window videos, they're also with the old, the smaller height in the castle and the floor videos. A lot of the videos that are coming up are just with the smaller castle, because I did a lot of taping before I realized that the scale of the bathtub and the witch was too big for how tall I made the wall. So I'm going to go, I'm going to let this dry, and I'm going to be well, for you, I'm going to come right back, and hopefully I get my Dremel tool in the mail so I can start sanding down what I have to sand, the old window, and cutting out the new window so we can start, so I can show you how I made the castle. So I'll see you in a sec. Hey, okay. So originally, when I was going to show everyone how I made the castle wall, I was just going to do a reenactment. But I have to increase this by 2 inches because the scale doesn't look right. The height of this is not tall enough for the witch in the bathtub, and it just looks all wrong, and I can't leave it like that. So what I had to do with the original castle wall, which you will see in a lot of the other videos because I tape them in different order, is I had to sand off the window area because there was bricks going around here. This is the area of where the original window was. Take off the top bricks and the trim, which I don't know where the trim went, but you saw it in the video ahead of this. And once I was able to do that, I filled it in. I did my lines. This is still wet. I had the hairdryer on it for a little bit, but we're going to have to do this a little bit differently how I did this original one, but I'm going to show you how I set this up. So the first thing I did was I took a piece of cardboard in the size that I wanted, and I really wanted to make it very, very strong. So I took some of this screen material that I had bought at, I believe, Home Depot, and I cut it and I stapled it on. I did it on the outside and also put it on the inside. I wanted this mesh here just to make it really as strong as possible. But this, I didn't want to do that here on air because there's a lot of pokey things, and I'm always getting poked with it and cut. So I did that off camera. Okay. Then when I had my cardboard with the screen on both sides, I made hold on, I'll move this out of the way for just a second. I had a lot of these pieces of wood that were cut in circles and had a hole in the center. My girlfriend had given them to me. As a matter of fact, I think this was the original castle floor, because you can even see the battery pack. But then I took this out and I made a different castle floor, because I thought by lowering the castle floor, making it smaller, the height would improve, but it still doesn't look right. Okay, then I masking taped like 3 of them together. I took this, think of it as a larger sheet, and I even taped it down to the form. Okay, I taped it down. I even put wire in there just to make sure that it stayed to the form of this roundness. And then I put my paper mache on it and I let it dry for a little bit. Okay, I was doing the outside first, I do the inside later. Now we're not going to be able to do it like that with this extension. Let me put this down, my little barb. Oh, and then okay, sorry. Then when I finished this area and it was dry, I moved. I cut off the tape that was still on the side, and then I moved these all down a little bit more, and then I did the next section. Okay, this castle wall, I did it in 2 sections of this. I did like this half and then that half. I think I had more of these, I'm not sure, but I utilized them so that basically what these were doing was just keeping my cardboard in a circular pattern. They were the forms, they were the backup. Now we have to do this a little bit differently, because I already have put these boards on here, and it's not letting the circles lay. So I'm hoping we can get this done. The first thing I want to do is I need to attach this extra form onto the top over here. And I have my glue gun heating, or at least I hope. Okay. Now I'm just going to put a few little dabs of glue here and there, because this is not going to be the thing, I should say, that's going to hold this. It's just going to hold it while I use more glue. I just want to get it held down while I use some other glue on this. And I don't think you can see what I'm doing. I'm sorry. Oops, gotta remember. Okay, I'm just trying to get it down for a little bit. Here, let's put another little layer, just a couple of dabs here, a couple of dabs here, just to hold this in place. All right, okay, line that up properly. Okay, this is the side. Just talking to myself a little bit because I want to make sure my window. Okay, this has got to go around a little bit more. Okay. All right. This is a little off here because I took too much off, so I'm just going to make sure that this side is lined up. I will fix that side when I'm putting on the paper mache. Okay. I want to get just a little glue to hold it down here. Okay. All right. The glue is just a temporary fix. Okay, until I can get just to hold this in place. I want to make sure that it looks good all around. It doesn't look good over here. Okay. Oh, maybe I should be in screen when I'm telling you I don't like how it looks. All right. Okay. Just adding, sorry, I'm off. I realize that I'm not doing this on. Just adding a little glue, trying to hold it where I want it for right now. Okay. We smudge that up. Yeah, we smudge that up a little bit. Okay. We need something to go under here. We didn't realize that we were going to need something. All right, well, we'll hold it for the time being. Okay. Now this looks good on this side. Again, I'm going to have to fill in a little bit over there. Now, because I don't have my supports, I'm going to try something. And this is, I think I'm done with this. So let me turn this off, because we don't need to burn ourselves and add that fun to the mix. Okay. I'm going to put, and this is a tip, and I've used it before, and it's a great tip from Heather Tracy. Let me pull over. Okay. I'm going to put some super glue on this. And the reason why I'm putting super glue on here is it's going to stiffen up this wood, this cardboard. So it's not as flimsy, because again, I don't have the supports under here like I had for the rest of it. Whoa, super glue attack. Okay, hold the horses. Have a little super glue problem. Eeky weeky. I'm trying not to get my fingers full of super glue or burn myself. Let's see if we can accomplish that. Okay, I'm just going to spread it out with my this spatula a little bit. And this is something you definitely want to do with adequate ventilation, because this stuff stinks. Okay. Whoa, it's going down. Leaky. We have a leak. Now, it's not so bad if it goes down here, because I have to redo. Leaky. Ooh. I have to redo the plaster on the walls. I guess I added a little too much there. Okay, I need this to tilt more in like that. Okay, and I have to add some more on this side. Ugh, this stuff really stinks. Oh, you know, and I have to do it on camera. See, a reenactment would have been so much easier to do, because I just would have been able to have it on a flat piece. But if you want, you know, this is the creation, how we create things. and sometimes it's not pretty. Okay, and there is one of my kids texting me. I always leave my phone on when my children aren't home. My children happen to be 24 and 21, but make it nice and stiff. Okay. And really seriously, make sure you have plenty of ventilation for this. I'm just spreading it around a little bit with this. Okay, I want to get a little bit more in between here and here. Make sure it's on everywhere. Okay. Now I'm going to let this dry for a little bit. It dries really quick. So I'll be right back in a second. I'm just going to pause this. Okay. So the super glue dried, and I just put in 2 little sticks here with carpenter's glue. I'm not even waiting for it to dry. Just so I have something to glue against a flat surface, these pieces here, when I extend them and add another piece up. These might be a little taller than I need. I'm not sure. I'm just leaving them that way. It's fine. I can cut them at any particular point in time. So I found while I was off, I have my Mod Podge, which is a really perfect thing to hold this while I'm working on it. Now, I can see, and I don't know if you can, it's bowing out a little bit on the top, especially by the window. That's going to be okay. I have to take that in consideration when I put my paper mache. Now, the paper mache that I use the same one. Let me move everything out of the way here so you can see. I got this. It's I believe, a 5-pound bag. It's called Activia, and it's just gray paper pulp powder. I guess they must use newspapers. I really don't know. It's called Celluclay. That's the name of the product, but it's made by Activia. And it says here, just add water. It's compressed and lightweight. I've used this pretty much off and on throughout. I made a green man using this stuff. You take it, you put it in a bowl. It's very dusty. I'm just going to let you know. You add some water. They have the instructions in the bag of how much water you're supposed to add. I add the water, but I also add some tacky glue to the whole mix. And depending on how much water and tacky glue, when I was making the green man, this is still the batch from the green man, it was a little harder than this, but I need this to be a little bit softer, so I just added more tacky glue here and here. Okay, so let's pretend that this is on those wooden mold pieces that I was showing you. And the first thing I did was, after I had this all set up, is I took some gel. This is my liquid Tex. It's glossy. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see it. It's heavy gel. And the reason why I decided to use some gel on this was I wanted to make sure that I had a coat of something in between the screen and the cardboard, because sometimes there is a little air, you know, it's not flat against it. And if I didn't press my celluclay, the paper mache, firmly enough against this, I wanted to make sure that there was no air pockets. And let me tell you, whatever I did trying to cut off this top and sand off the rest of this stuff, it must have worked really well. Okay. Because it was really very difficult to get just that edge around the window off, the original window, which you can still see it's a different color. Now this is going to get really messy. Hopefully I don't ruin the paint job of the entire piece, but if I have to repaint it again, that's fine. The following videos that are in the castle section are all how I painted this prior to raising it up 2 inches. So like I said before, when I was making the trim that's going to go on the top, which I can't find where it went, probably going to have to pause and find that at some point. Those are all painted in the videos to come. There is a gap between the two, that's okay. I just want to make sure there's all gel medium here. And we can scrape off some of the excess. We don't need that much there. Just making sure that there's gel medium between the mesh, the cardboard. Now, the reason why I'm using gel medium instead of glue, let's get in screen, is gel medium, I think, has less water content in it. And this paper mache does take a while to dry. It takes a couple of, I was able, when I originally did this, to put it in the oven at, I think it was 170, 180 degrees, and leave it in the oven, and that really speeded up the drying time. But because I have the light fixtures in here with the battery and everything, and I don't think that's going to be able, I know I cannot put that in the oven. I can't put this in the oven to dry. So I'm just cleaning off, sort of cleaning off my spatula. And here we go with the messy fingers. Ta-da! Okay. So you take some of this, and you support from the bottom and just put it on. Couldn't be any easier once we got to this point. Oh, once I make a batch of this paper mache or celluclay, whichever way you want to call it, the product is called celluclay, I keep it in a plastic bag and I keep it on the door of my refrigerator. Now, a lot of the homemade paper maches, because I watched some videos, they were saying different, ones, whether they use flour or I think I watched one that was using rice starch. That was fascinating. Beautiful, beautiful paper mache product, made a beautiful clay. They say that it, they put Lysol, like some kind of ingredient in there so it doesn't mold. I have found, now I've had this in my refrigerator for over a month. I make it airtight, and I have found that this does not mold at all. I mean, if I kept it there for 6 months or something like that, I'm sure it would mold. Um, but once you make a batch of this, it it stays. Now I'm going to be doing the bricks around here for the window a little differently, but I still want to get a base in here. And I'm not addressing that gap yet. I will be, or maybe I have. I can't see it. I got to stand a little bit to see it. Okay, here you go. I can tell I need a little bit more here. And this was much easier to do when it was on those wooden forms because I could just apply a lot of pressure to get this down. Now I'm being very gentle with it. So, future lesson, make sure you know how high you want something in the future so you don't have to go through all of this. I have to make sure they're the same, looking at it from all angles, they're the same height as the ones below them, or same thickness. Now I am going to do this layer, this whole side, and then I'm going to put the top bricks on the top here, and I'll show you what I do with those. I'm not going to do it now. I don't think I can do it now. I want to give this time to dry a little bit, but what I do is I just make individual bricks, and I want them I don't know, wider or deeper so they overhang a little bit, these bricks, so it looks like the top of a castle. Just again, another little bit of texture. But I want this to dry first, and then when I make these bricks, these are the bricks that I put that trim on that I made in the first part of the video. So you see how I'm just laying it down. I want to make sure that there's a very good connection between the bricks that were there and these, because this happens to be a mortar line here. So I want to make sure though that we're very well connected. Check to see if this still looks straight. Okay. Now there's a lot of filling in that you can do once you have this base down, even with the mortar lines. I'm just going to go around the window with you here. I got to fill in that gap a little bit. There you go. And then I'm going to pause the video for a little bit until I get this whole piece sectioned in. And then I'll show you how I drew the lines. But I want to do a lot of checking to make sure that it's lined up properly. It's all the same. Also from the inside, if it's bending, and because this is so big and I can't maneuver it that well, because I go off screen all the time, I'm going to do all of that off camera. And one thing that I can, let's see, this is the shape of my window. And okay, this is, and let's see if you can see this. This is 2 inches from here to this line right there. And then this is that extra 1/16 of an inch that I added, just so that I can place. So when I put my window in here, I can cut it to fit, because I can tell you already now, it looks like I'm not going to need that 1/16 of an inch. This needs a little bit more here, right there, in that little corner, to make it a circle. And I really don't want to have to sand this. I had to sand this area smooth. Ooh, we have a spider web from the glue gun. Should be using them inside the castle. I had to wear a mask. I did it outside because it was just a mess. And even with the Dremel, it took a really, took about an hour to get that whole thing smoothed down, and so I can put the bricks there so you wouldn't see brick in the first window. It took a really long time to get that done. So I'm going to pause now for a little bit. I'm going to finish this whole thing, size it up, and then I'll come in and I show you how I do my mortar lines and add some texture. Okay, be back in a bit. Okay, I have the paper mache. I put it over all of the cardboard. I made sure that it was pretty much in line and level. And now what you have to do is you have to run grout lines. And I started to do that prior to going online, because I wanted to make sure that I did it in the right dimension, how thick each layer of bricks would be. What I did was, you take a straight edge and you just run it across. Okay, and do that again here. Now this, see, this is still flimsy. My other one, when I was doing it, wasn't flimsy because it was on the wooden pieces. I hope, can you see what I'm doing? Okay, you just have a line. And let's get this up here. Okay. Now bricks are done. And I just want to say before I forget, a couple of things. Number one, today is a good day, because even though I had to redo this whole thing, I'm getting to rebuild it. I didn't burn myself with the hot glue, and I didn't stick myself to anything with the super glue. So it is a very, very good day. Once this dries, it's going to be really tough, and it won't be flimsy at all. Might take a while to dry, but that's okay. You can still play with it. Another thing that I want to show you is how I did the bricks. Okay, so I started, and you have to do it all. Let me try here. Alternately, some of them are lined up a little bit better, but this one goes here and here. So now this line, because I'm going down, it's every other line, and you just put Now, I am going to be doing this a lot more off screen. You don't need to see me do this. But I just wanted to show it to you. Now, this one is lined up here and here. So you're trying to stagger them. And I'll be working this much more offline. And also making sure that it's drying. one thing. If, like when I put the wood, this wood and extend it here, I need to fill in. It's not a problem to fill in with this stuff. All you do is put, once it's dry, or even if it's wet, just put a little tacky glue on the area and then put more of the paper mache on it. It'll be fine. Not a problem. Then, whoa, let's not, hold on, let me just get this here. Sometimes I made some of the bricks stick out more. And how you do that is you take some of your paper mache, and before it's even dry, or even after it's dry, I waited until it was dry, and you just plop a little bit more, feather it out, and this brick sticks out. Because you don't want it to be totally even. The other thing I wanted to show you before I finish, because I'm just going to go and finish doing the lines. You don't need to see me do the lines. You saw it. You could also use one of these tools and really get in there. But I have to support it from the back side and really make the grout lines deep. You know, just, and the bricks. And you just play with it for a little while to make it get into a castle mode, a brick mode, and you play with them, round some of them off. And that's what you do with that. Okay, and you continue that all the way. Then to give texture, to really give, although this is not flat by any means, and there's a lot of texture in the paper clay to begin with, because I didn't trowel it down to make it smooth, you hit it with a crumbled up ball of tin foil. And that really makes it, you can see it over here, the texture more than in this wet part over here, but that really adds a lot of texture to your bricks. Now, okay, like I said, I'm going to continue that off camera. I also want to show you that the inside is, I filled in a little bit here and there. The window looks like it'll fit. But at this point, if I have to round something off more, I got my Dremel tool. I can do that. Not a problem. I'm going to, the next video to finish this before the painting videos is I'm going to put a layer of those little bricks, like I showed you, up on top with that trim. And I may come in for just a couple of seconds because you pretty much know how to make bricks. You just make all the same size bricks. And once this is dry, you put some glue, you put them on, and you just put them on. If in the corners I need to fix anything, once I get this wood, again, a little glue, more paper mache, and it's all good. So my castle window, which doesn't look really round in the screen, it's a little bit rounder in real, there we go. Okay, good. Down here needs, whatever. We'll figure that all out when the time comes. If I have to round things off a little bit before I put the window in, at this point, that is not a problem. I have my Dremel and I know how to use it. So the next, the next part of this will be the little bricks on top and the trim. I'll see you then. Okay, so after your paper clay is dry, and this has been dried for some time, you can add some decorative elements to it. I added different kinds of bricks around the windows. I added this top, and I'll show you how I did that a little bit later. And some of the bricks I extended out a little bit. I don't know if you can see the depth. Yeah, you can see that some of them are a little bit out more than the others. And how I did that, it's very simple, is you just take some PVC glue, white glue, tacky glue, put a little on the paper clay, and then take more paper clay and just put it up on top and rub it in. Very, very easy to do. So this is the outer shell. This is the inner part, which I'm not quite, not anywhere near done. This is the outer shell. And let me tell you, it bends a little bit, but I will have no fear if I ever get to ship this, that this is going to break. Because I had the original floor in here. I made a different floor. And I had screwed the original floor in. And I put like screws here, here, and then I covered it with more paper clay, trying to find the screws and cut it out enough where I could get the screwdriver in to unscrew out the original floor was pretty hard to do. So I have really no fear of this breaking or cracking. It really doesn't give at all. I can bend it slightly and hope that it stays in a little bit, because I want it to be nice and round over here. But it's really hard, and I'm really pleased with how it came out. Now I am going to leave it a gray castle stone, but I like to paint it because I want darkness in between. I want more gradients of colors, even though you can tell from here that this part is dark and this part is light. But I'm going to gesso it because I'm going to add more colors to it. And I'm choosing to gesso it in black, because then I'll be putting like a dark gray, then probably whitewashing a medium gray, and then a light gray. And I'm just using the top of the gesso container, adding a lot of water to the paint. This is a pretty thick gesso. And I'm going to be using quite a bit of it to get this whole thing painted. So just add some gesso and some water. This is like the undercoating paint here. Okay, let's see how far I get. And now I'm just going to paint this whole thing black. And I can add more water to this if I want. What's important on this coat is to get in all those crevices. Now, I was looking at some castle walls on the internet, Googling gray castle walls, and a lot of the mortar looks white or light gray to me, but this is a witch's castle, and I just think it would look better darker. So you don't have to watch me paint this whole thing, but I'm just taking some gesso, and you could take acrylic paint if you want, and water it down. Chalk paint, I was thinking about using my chalk paint, and I just wanted the like acrylic that's in the gesso just to give it like a waterproof. Not that water would really do a lot. It would have to be soaking in water for this to come apart, and I mean soaking in water. But I just feel that the gesso gives it a protective coating. And I don't need it to be too dark. I just need it to give me a little bit of a dark background so when I put my other layers of paint on it, it's going to have some different colors. So I'm just going to continue to do that. And when that is all done, I'll come back, because I don't use my heat gun to dry things. I let them dry naturally. I don't use my heat gun a lot. The only time I really use my heat gun is when I'm trying to fix something with polymer clay. If a mistake happens and I can't put the piece in the oven, that's when I use my heat gun, because you could use that to bake the clay. So I'm just going to get this all painted black, like a black wash, and I'll be back when it's done and dry. Okay, last time I was here, I was trying to get this back all painted black, and let me tell you, this is 2 or 3 coats because I kept on seeing little white spots all over the place. Some of this right now that you might see white spot is just because I was having paper clay on the other side. I was finishing molding for the other side, and it just got on here, but we're going to just go with it. I'm not going to get crazy because trying to get into all of these little crevices, and I can still see some now, was getting me a little nutty. So I want to paint this in gray, in shades of gray, and the first one that I want to do, and I'm going to take some of my white gesso, put it in this little container over here. I want to make sure I get enough paint, and if you need to know, I'm using Stamperia is how you're supposed to say it. In there, this is a little yoga tray. I'll just put my white paintbrush in my black gesso. It's probably not the best thing to do, but guess what? Doing it anyway. I just want to get a gray color. Now, usually, or a dark gray color, I want this. Usually, I wouldn't show painting because I'm a fussy painter. I might be painting this like 16 times. I'm going to try to not do that this time around and try to be more exact in what I'm doing. But I'll do this. If I don't like it, I'll take it off. It's just, but, ooh, and I got black paint all over me. I'm adding some water just to make it, not sure. I'm not going to try to paint it a solid black. I might be a solid dark gray. I might be wiping it off a little bit because I'm going to be dry brushing this with different tones of gray too. But I think on the whole, I just want to get a coat of this gray here to use it as my base, which I could have probably used, since I'm using both gesso, white and black. I could have probably did this instead of painting it all black. But we'll see. We might come up with a different effect. I hope I have enough paint because I do not want to mix this again. Okay. And I think I'm just going to do a real easy coat of this. I made it watery. It's sort of like a watery dry brush, if that makes any sense. I'm not trying to get in all the crevices, just trying to get some of that black color off. I also oops, you can't see what I'm doing. Hey, I also put in a new switch because I ruined the last one. So thankfully I had 2 switches. Oh, you can see what I'm doing here. It's just like a watery coat. Now, depending on how many shades, I think I'm going to be having at least 2 more shades of gray in here. This is going to be my darkest color gray, and then I'm going to lighten it up, and I might add other colors in this too, just to add some interest. Oh, I should stay on screen. There was a lot of texture in these bricks. That paper mache that I made was great for adding lots of texture. If I still see any white spots deep in the crevices, I'll try to fill it in with this mixture. So this is my first wash. And you can start to see the texture popping out again. And with the subsequent, with the other washes that I'm going to put on, you'll see it more and more. So that's coat 2. Oh, I'm off camera. I'm sorry, guys. Just trying to get around the making sure that all the now, okay, time to talk about this. I'm not quite sure what color. I'm just going to make this look metalish on the top. So I think the light gray, the gray might look better to give me a more metallic. Because I'm going to make it look rusty, I think. And I'll also do it on this side. Now, I don't know if these bricks are going to show on the inside. It's very dark in here. Can you see at all? No. Okay. Well, I don't know if these bricks are going to show on, I don't know if I'm going to put trim over them. I'm not quite sure, but I would just want them to follow the same pattern as the outside bricks. And also, I want to go around the window. All the different colors. Make sure I got all of this. And I can paint these a little bit more heavily. Whoa, don't want white on it. Must have not mixed someplace in my little yogurt top that I'm using as my palette. That's a darker. Oh, okay. So that is wash number 1. Wait for this to dry. Oh, I'm off screen a lot during this. This is very big, bulky piece to try to get on camera the way my camera is set up. It's right over here. Hello. Hanging over my desk. I guess I maybe should attach it to the ceiling. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. And then have the wire long enough to get into the computer. Usually if I'm just right down here, it's not a problem. But this piece has a little bit of bulk to it. So let's see how to hold this. Okay. Woof. We'll figure it out. And the more tone you get, the more realistic it looks. And it's going to look more and more realistic as I start putting the lighter grays on. And they will be The next color gray will probably be a little bit like a wash like this, but the last coats are going to definitely be dry brushing. So we can have fun doing that. But I'm also, while I'm doing this, seeing if there's any of those little white spots deep down that didn't get painted, to just give them, make sure that they're all painted. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry now, probably just play with it a little bit more. I'm not going to be adding a different color. I'm just going to get all of this dark gray and crevices and things like that, just to make sure that, again, like I said, there's not any of that, the base light color coming through. And I'll let it dry, and then I'll come back once it's dry and make another lighter gray color. Okay? All right, see you in a bit. Okay, now that I've left the first coat of the dark gray dry, and you can really see the difference between the black and the dark gray, I mixed up another batch of color, and I hope I have enough of it. I left it in the same, in my little yogurt top over here, because I just wanted to make sure, sometimes I wanted to make sure it was lighter than the color that I had already put down. So I'm just going to do another wash of this color on here. Hopefully I have enough. And the more washes you do, where you don't try to color just everything in, the more depth the stones have. Oops. Yeah, I know, it's really hard to show you what I'm doing here. It's not like I have a lot of room to maneuver. Whoopsie. Stay. Okay. If I feel like this particular tone is going on too much in certain spots, I'll take it off, a little bit off. I sort of, this is not really, I don't know what to call this. It's a wet dry brush, because if I was dry brushing, I'd have a lot less paint, I think, on my brush. But and then the other thing is, once this dries, I can always go back with more of this same tone. I don't know if you can even see what I'm doing. I don't have a lot of room between where my camera is. I can pull you up a little bit more. Maybe that would help for you to see. But basically, I'm just, there goes that word basically again. Primarily. No, not primarily. That's not a good word either. I gotta go look up on the thesaurus, different words. What I'm doing is I'm just putting another wash of paint on. Slowly but surely getting this lighter and lighter, but still trying to keep some of the darkness underneath. I try to make sure, you can't see, just to go in, just basically painting all the little nooks and crannies over here. And there's still some white spots that I can see. By putting water in it, I'm lightening it a little bit. But it won't dry that much lighter, I don't think. So it's really, it's a wet wash dry brush. It's another wet wash. I'm probably going to be putting another the real light coat, the real highlighting coat on soon. I don't know, maybe I'll go even a step lighter. I just don't want to get to the point where there is no depth in the stones. I think you can really see how using that paper mache gives you a lot of crevices and really makes it look like real stone. Now there is some white spots still deep in those things. I'll probably go through right in here. I noticed quite a few of them. I'll probably go through when this is dry and try to add some of the darkness so that there's no more white. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm off screen. Basically, like I said, I'm just adding a coat of paint, but there is, I can still see some white deep spots down there, so I'm gonna have to go back through. Oops. Now the switch I'm going to leave alone. I'm going to clean off whatever paint I got on top of it, but I'm not going to try to paint it or anything like that. It's a switch. And while I would have liked it if the switch was black, I didn't have an option. The switch is white where I bought them from, and that's what it's going to just stay. I'm not going to paint it because I don't want the paint to gunk up in the switch and then all of a sudden it doesn't turn on and off. And they're very delicate, and I don't want to mess it up simply because I want to have it a different color. It's fine that it's white. So here's my next color. So far I've had the black, then the dark gray, and then this over it. I'll probably be putting, like I said, another dry brush, a real dry brush. Some of it got a little thick. Wipe it off a little bit. And we're really starting to bring out, whoa, where'd it go? There you go. You're really starting to bring out the character of the walls, of the castle wall. I can't, whoa, I just took my camera out of its socket, but just to try to get a higher view so you can see all of it. Okay, let me see if I can get my camera back in where it's supposed to be, but I'm going to wait. I'll come back with the next coat, so I'll see you in a few minutes. Well, the mid shade dried and I'm starting to put on some lights. But before I did that, I told you there was some white spots over here that were really annoying me. And I still see more. It's unbelievable. So I went through and I took some straight black, watered it down, patted it in to try to get in all the crevices. And then I colored over with the medium. I didn't even go for the dark. I just went for the medium. So now I'm going to try to sort of like dry brush a lighter color. I'm hoping you can see some of it right here that I was practicing with. And how I'm going to do that is I'm loading up my brush. Most of the time when you're dry brushing, you wipe off all the paint. But this has got so many crevices in it that I think if I just lightly go over it with my paintbrush, not trying to go hard, I will be able to dry brush simply because of the deep crevices in the paper mache that I used. And I'm just going to go over the entire piece like this. I think it would work better if it's almost individual brick by individual brick, which is going to take me a while to do, but I think you have the idea. I'm just loading up my brush And I'm not like poking it. I'm just sort of letting it glide over the top, taking a little bit of the paint off, but not much. And when I see that something looks a little bit flatter, I go even more gently, just because I don't want to cover the whole thing in this color. I want this to be a standout color. You can see that, how it's coming out, right? The difference. Now, I may even go one step lighter than this. I'm not sure. I have to see how the whole thing looks once the whole piece is painted. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing. Again, I'm loading my brush, getting some paint on it. I really love the texture that came out on this from that paper mache. It really is showing a lot of texture. It's giving it the feeling to me of old, maybe worn a little. Well, if it is worn, if it is old, it is worn a little. I can say that just for myself. And there's a lot of different tones. I don't know if the camera is coming up with it all, but there's all sorts of different tones showing, and I really, really like that. Now, I haven't decided yet. I may come back in and put a few different tones here and there to different ones, maybe, and I'll probably do that with my watercolors. Now, when I've used watercolors, and I think I told you this when I used it on the bathtub, you have to seal it, and whatever kind of matte sealer you have, just so the paints don't come off, because if anybody decides to clean any of this with a damp rag or something like that, if it's watercolor, the paint will come off. And they're not going to know I used watercolors in what I was doing. So a matte sealer would take care of that problem, or at least give a little protection so that the paints don't come off. Now on this back, and this will be put into finishing touches. I think I'll have a group of videos on finishing touches or miniatures made. I'm going to be making some bats that I'm real excited about to show you how to do that, to place on here like they're flying around. And then, too white, well, can't do anything about it now. What was I saying? Why is it, am I going into a too white section here? Mix it up a little bit more. Oh, I got hair in my paint. Nothing like it. I'm shedding all over the place. I was talking about the bats. I have a really neat idea for to have some flying bats. And like I said to you, I haven't really been buying a lot of things to complete this. I'm trying to use paints or mediums or stuff that I have, or or whatever. I'm just trying to utilize pieces of things that I have. But I did buy, okay, here's the things I bought. I bought the lights. I bought the bathtub originally, which was the inspiration piece for this. And I did buy the wood, my little wood slicer, the precision cutter or something. I forgot what that's called. But that's something that I could be using for a lot of different things. It's not just for this project. It's a tool that I can use a lot. But I did buy a paper punch that had miniature ivy leaves because I want to have some ivy coming up the sides, I think. But that's a paper punch that, and when I get to showing you how I did, you know, little things for all of this, little miniature items for all of this, or the finishing touches, or whatever I want to call it when I get to that part of the video. Who knows, I might, well, I don't want to really put any finishing touches on here until the other side is done because I'm constantly grabbing it and I don't want to ruin all the things that I'm doing because I'm grabbing it and not paying attention to what I'm grabbing. I'm just mixing up some more paint because it was getting too dry. And since it's still in my palette, I can tell that I have to go a little bit lighter, which is fine. I'm just using gesso. I haven't even used any acrylic paints, just the gesso on all of this so far. Well, I did use my watercolor paints on the bathtub to bring out some tones in the black. I think this is pretty much the same color as the one I was using. Yep, okay. Alrighty, let's see. Finish doing this. And I'm off screen again. I'm sorry, this is such a big piece. It's hard to get this all on screen. And the other thing I find, and maybe you find it the same way, is I have to, after I do something like this, I have to sit with it for a little while. I have to see how it looks tomorrow morning when I get up and come over here and check how this looked. And whenever I'm involved in a project that I love, I always wake up in the morning and I come down, because this is where I do my work, is downstairs in my house. And I come and I look at it like something might have happened to it over the night, or just to see how it is. It's almost like it's alive, and I want to make sure that it had a nice night. So I always come down first thing in the morning. I get my coffee because I have that Ninja, which is one of the things I love the most in this world. It makes a nice hot, I can program it, so it makes a nice hot cup of coffee when I wake up, and I feel like a queen every morning that I go and get my first cup of coffee that I didn't have to wait and make, because I always make the coffee just a little bit before I wake up. So I go down, I get my coffee, and then I come down here and I see how my piece looks and how my piece managed to get through the night. And a lot of times it looks better the next day, or it shows you where you have to improve it, and you have more ideas of what you want to do. And I think that's also because you get to sleep on it, and and you have, and you're away from it, so you bring a fresher perspective to whatever you're doing. Now again, this is the area of the switch. I'm trying not to paint the switch because I do not want to get it stuck together. And when I look at it tomorrow morning, I might say, oh, I think I should go a little bit and do another highlighting coat. Or I think I should bring in some more color tones into this, because I have just used different shades of gray, and it's the same paint. You know, it's a white gesso and a black gesso. I haven't changed the paints at all. So it's a real toned effect. Some of these where I feel that they look a little too wide as far as the mortar, I'll come in and just put okay. Let's see, put in a little bit of the lighter color. Keep squirreling. Keep going off and having different thoughts in my head to say, and then I'm not finishing the first thought that I was trying to tell you. I might add some like drips down. Oops, wait. Sorry, this is really cumbersome. Like drips down, like there was drips come, water down from the window and it stained it. I might add a little moss to some of this to make it look like it had moss growing on it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll play it by ear on how we feel about it. But the first thing that I really have to do is I have to be pleased with my background color. And for some reason, I don't know, it's not looking as light to me. Okay. I got all my black paint in here. Great. I'm a mess. I don't know if you can see that. I got some, I'll clean that out later too. I just didn't want to go with pure white because that just looks fake. But I do want to lighten it up. It doesn't seem like it's light in here, but I better be careful. Just mix it in my palette to gray it down a little bit. Just didn't feel as light over here as it did, or maybe this is the real light color, as it did over there. It didn't seem like the tones were as different, is what I should say. It seemed like I was painting more of the same tone on it, and I just wanted to have more of a contrast. I don't know why that happened, but okay, that to me is looking a little bit better as far as different contrasts. Maybe because I was running out of paint. And so, am I off screen again? We're probably painting this whole entire thing off screen. Okay, I'm trying, guys. I'm trying. But I think you have the idea now. So I'll continue just going around touching this up where I think I don't have a nice contrast of colors, and let it dry. Probably sit with it until tomorrow morning when I come down with my delicious cup of coffee, going around the window because the window seems a little dark to me, and seeing what else I have to do. If I want to bring in a different tone, if I want to bring in some browns, if I want to bring in some purples, maybe even some tans. I sort of like it with just the different shades of gray. But again, when you sleep, I'm not in the frame. When you sleep on something, you find out that you might feel differently about it. So just going to continue doing a little bit work now on this, and I'll be back probably tomorrow night, but it'll all seem like the same time to you because I'm taping, pre-recording it. As you can see, I have my red pajama bottoms on. Hopefully I won't be wearing them tomorrow. We do not have costume continuity in this little show, but and we'll see what I decided to do. Or it might be a couple of days because I might just want to sit with it a little bit longer. So I'll be back in a few. Okay, so I finished this coat that I was working on last you saw, and then I decided to go ahead and start with my lightest coat that I'm going to be using on the castle. I just wanted to show you that. And, originally I was using my gesso to just dry brush, and this is an official dry brush coat. And then I didn't like it because it was just too white. And so I decided to use, I have this home decor chalk paint. It's in, I forgot which, sheepskin. A lot of people recommend this. Crystal Tisha of Rustic Ink, Angel Designs recommended this paint. And what it is, it's just a creamy white, a little bit off-white. And as with straight black and straight white, they're two, when you're trying to do something that looks realistic and you're painting it, they're too stark. So I didn't like how the white looks. I started to use this. Now I just put this in temporarily, my little window, because I wanted to see how it looked. And I'll show you how to do this. So you dip your paintbrush in, and you really, as with everybody else who's taught dry brushing techniques, you take most of the paint off your paintbrush. Oh, this still had some black in it. That's how well I clean my brushes. And you very gently go over the top. You're not trying to paint in. You're not trying to get all of the crevices. You're just trying to get the top peaks maybe a little bit down lower. And just go over to bring out even more of the details of what you've done. Now once I finish painting this entire thing with this dry brush coat, and I started to do it here. I don't know if you can even see it, but I took my watercolors and I'm just making, I think put this in the raw umber watercolor. I've showed you my little pack of watercolors that I've had since I was in high school many moons ago. And see, got a little bit on there more than I wanted to, so I'm just taking it off. My brush isn't that dry as it should be, so a little blob came off. That's okay. If I feel that, oh, see, I'm squirreling again. Sorry, guys. If I feel that this is too light, I will go over all of these with a lighter gray wash, and that'll be just like a wash where I have hardly any pigment in the water that I'm putting on. Now I'm seeing that this, for some reason, is coming a little different than what it looked over there. It's coming a little different look. Same print, same, there we go. Maybe I don't. I did that part last night, and maybe the paint was a little too wet. Maybe because I'm not getting any paint on this thing. That would help if you got some paint on your brush. Here we go. Oh, a little too much. If it's too light for me after all of this is done, it's feeling just a little too light, I can go over it with, again, like I was saying, a very light gray wash, no pigment in the water, hardly any, and just go over the whole thing. But when I'm doing that, that's when I can incorporate different colors to the wash. I can add a little brown, a little blue, just to make them interesting. But the general overwash should be all of just one tone, just to tone it down. But you can't tell if this is going to be too white or creamy white until you do this whole thing. Now this might be a little bit more of a wetter dry brush than most people do, but it's close. You just really want to get some highlighted spots on the top of your rocks, and also to lighten this up a little bit. And sometimes you think, I'm covering up almost all the other painting that I did on all of this, but it comes out in, because I put, what is this? I had the black, then I had the dark gray, the mid gray, and I think even a lighter gray. This might be my third or fourth coat of paint. I don't even remember anymore. But it comes out that there's a lot of different tones to the whole thing. That, and it just brings it, I think it looks a little bit more realistic. Or if not realistic, at least well crafted. If not as realistic. But I'm liking how this looks. And you can see the difference of where I didn't get to paint. Now you might notice that I painted my top trim. I left it black because I wanted it to look like old metal. And I started to use burnt sienna, which I think is a wonderful rust color. It's the same thing that I used on my bathtub washes. I love that color. And it's not getting any, okay, I'm trying to be so good I'm not even getting any paint on this thing. That's why I'm not getting anything going here. Okay, now I got probably too much paint. Yes, you did, June. Okay. What was I saying? So I started to paint this so it looked like a little bit of rust. And then I used, and I'm going to put this, I think, on the bathtub portion of it. I made what I considered rust. If you look at rust, it has some of it, I'm not going to say all rust, has like a gritty texture to it. like it's eating away at the iron. So it's like it's gritty and then it makes holes. So what I used, and I'll just tell you about it here. I'm going to show it to you in the bathtub, but you can see it right in here. Let me see if I can get that. You can see it right in there. Is I just took some sand that I had, and this happened to be sand from Sedona, Arizona, when my family and I went there. I had taken some of the sand, the earth, because it was red. I mean, it's such a strange thing coming from a non-desert environment, and I would even think even from a desert environment to see such beautiful color. So I took some home and I used that to make some of my rust effects, which I call my rust effects, which is I mixed some of the sand with regular PVA glue. I don't have any kind of recipe for it. I just mixed it together, put in, a little bit amount of glue at a time just to see, to make sure that it wasn't too much. You could always add more, or you could add more sand. I had enough. And then I put in some of the burnt sienna. I'm using Liquitex acrylic artist colors. I also use my watercolors too. I have the same type of tone, just to make it that really burnt orange look. And then what I'm going to do after this is I have a matte finish. I'm going to put a matte finish over this so that you don't, now you can't see an individual grain of sand, but by putting some kind of finish over it, it's sort of making it not look more like one piece. I mean, I'm not going to glop the finish on, but it won't give it as much of a sandy texture. It'll look more copacetic, if that's the proper word for it. I'm not even sure about that, but it'll just make it look more real, because rust doesn't necessarily look like sand, but it does have that gritty feel to it. So I'm just finishing up dry brushing this whole thing. And then what I'm going to do is, once this dries, I'm going to ask my daughter, I think I've mentioned her before in this video, how she, you know what, I'm dry brushing off screen. That's really helpful. Okay, she's very helpful. She will tell me if this looks good, what I have to do, what I don't have to do. She's got a great eye for this, and I really respect her opinion on anything when I ask her. Sometimes she has this, she tells me, well, Mom, it needs such and such, such and such, and it's really sort of hard to do whatever she told me it needs to do, but it always, always ends up being the right advice. Sometimes I can't do it because it's a little bit harder than or above my crafting level, but she's always right. So I will ask her if she thinks that this needs and again, I'm off camera. I'm sorry. This thing is so big, I don't know how to, and I'm working in a very small area with this camera. If I go any higher up, I would have to hang it from the ceiling. There we go. And I'm not ready to be hanging up then I'd have to try to figure out how to make it come in. I'm not that technically advanced. But getting back to my daughter, just so I don't squirrel from that conversation, she will tell me straight out what she thinks I need to do. So here's the whole thing dry brushed. I might, this area looks like it could use a little bit more. I might put the gray wash on it, and even if I don't put a gray wash, I will go through with some watercolor paints that I have and just maybe color some of them just a little bit of a different tone. Algae. Okay, just a little bit of a different tone so that, where am I? Okay, just a little bit of a different tone so that there is subtle differences. And then also I will make sure that I have it done how I like it on all of the parts. But I think on a whole that this really looks like rock, which is what I was going for. So that's it on the highlight portion of the bricks. I told you I was doing something here by putting, again, a little of this, the raw sienna. This was a wash. You put some down on your palette, put a lot of water, and just go over it. Then if you want some parts a little darker, you know, you just go over those parts, get some more pigment on your brush without so much water and put it on there. And I think that this makes this look like it's old and rusted. And I think that's going to be probably it unless I do the wash for this. So this is done. Now, what getting this done means, thankfully, or as close to done as possible, is I can now start on the window, getting the window in. So I couldn't put the window in until I finished all the painting because I didn't want to get any paint on the window because I'm not that neat of a painter. And then, of course, I told you, I think earlier, that I was going to put some bats here, which will probably be in videos later on in the little series here, the finishing touches. And then I'm going to be putting some ivy vines coming out. If that works. I haven't used the die cut yet. I have to see if the die cut works, how I like the vines that I have, to put them up on the sides to just give it some freakiness or more details on the back, even though the back will not be seen because most of the people would want to see it from the front. I still think that adding some details to the back would add a little special touch to the piece. This has finally finished a lot of the inside here. I'm starting to tone down the walls a little bit. I might, this was all watercolor that I was adding to the walls. What I might do is whitewash them now with the very, very light color of this, just to make them look a little bit whiter, because it did get a little yellower in here than I wanted it to, a little darker than I wanted it to, but then, you know, you can never tell until you do it. So I might just whitewash these guys just a little bit, just so it isn't as dark, but I'm not using white. I'm using the same sheepskin like I had before, just so it doesn't look that dark, because this really, oops, you're not seeing it. This really came out a lot darker than I thought it would. That's okay. I can always, if something happens that you don't like the way it comes out, you can always repaint it and start from the beginning. There's nothing, you know, nothing is learned or gained by not trying something. So, you know, just add a little bit more in light coats. And that was a little too dark than I want, too much pigment there, so lighten it up a little bit. And I don't know, I might even lighten it up some more. I have to, a lot of times you have to see what it's going to look like with everything else in it, because just looking at it here like this makes it's looking not as nice as I wanted it to look. I'm not sure what I wanted it to look like, but it's not as nice as I wanted it to look. So, but then once everything else is, oh, my candles went on. I hit the switch. I love my candles going on. Oh, there I go again. Okay, that's the way I'm holding it. Let's try to put it this way. I don't even know what I was saying. I got so excited with my candles coming on. Oops. See, I am not the neatest painter in the world. That's why I keep going back and forth with all of these things. By putting more than one coat on, who knows? You get different effects. You're just trying things. There's nothing with painting, when you're painting something, unless you're painting a portrait or a picture, there's nothing wrong with repainting it, regessoing, and starting from scratch. Nothing wrong with that. Okay? There. And also, I was saying that you have to put everything in the piece to see how it looks in relation to the rest of the piece. So this might be perfect for when I stick the bathtub in it, this little off-white with different colors in the walls, or it might look terrible. You can't tell. You have to do it. Then I can just add light, a little lightness here. Streaks. I mean, it's a castle wall, and it's an old castle wall. So I also, see, yes, you can see this, which I really should have showed when I'm finishing the beadboard. When I finished all the beadboard, of course, I painted it black, but anything that is solid black, again, it's just too stark. And there is a lot of black in this piece. So I took my watercolors, happened to use silver because I don't have white watercolor, and I just ran very light wash and then try to take it off of the pieces that were thicker, the ones that came out. And on the pieces that were thicker, I put some purple. Now you can't tell that I put purple on black or some blue on the black, but it changes the tone of the black just enough to show that there is maybe a little difference to it. Now, most people are not going to be staring at the back of my beadboard and saying, you know, what did she do? But what it does is, and I'll bring let me just get the bathtub up here, just because I'm talking about different painting techniques. It brings a little life. Now, it brings a little life. Now, here's my rusty tub. Here's my rusty tub. And I use the sand effects on the bottom of the tub also. And I am going to put a layer of matte finish on all of that, just to, again, smooth it out a little bit. But once you start to put the tub in here, now the tub is stark white and the bubbles are going to be stark white, unless if I can add a little tone to the bubbles once I get them done. But it just adds that this is more lively. Now, if I feel that there is just too much rust on this bathtub, I might go back in and add a little bit of black so it doesn't look so rusty. But I had to make it one way just to see if I liked it, and then I can always knock it back a little. Now, where I use the sand mixture, the lot of the sand mixture is right here where the feet attach themselves to the ceramic tub, because that looked just too, like, see on this side, it looked just a little too fake to me, which of course this is not metal feet added onto the ceramic. But I felt, and I can even take a little of it off now, some of it off the top. But I just felt like a little rust at that connection would make it look a little bit more realistic. Now looking at this side is nice and dull. I don't know what happened to this side to make it so bright, but I will be knocking down a little bit with my with watercolors. I do have black and watercolors just to knock down all the rust that I put on here. Um, and then of course with the matte finish. So when you're painting, um, don't be afraid. Like I happen to like, let's go back out now. I happen to like how this looks better, but underneath here is all different tones of colors. We have some blues, we have some yellows, we have a little bit of brown or purple over here. Nothing again that someone's going to say, oh, she painted that in blues and browns, but it just gives it a more realistic finish, especially since I do not want this dollhouse perfect, where everything looks absolutely, neat. And this is supposed to be a place where someone lives and someone, does things in here. Mainly takes large warm bubble baths. Okay, so I think the next thing is on this, I will either show it when the window goes in, or if I decide to put another uh, wash on this. But otherwise, this part, the construction and the painting finally of the castle walls has been completed, and I can't tell you how happy I am with that. All right, so until I see you in the next video, have fun creating beauty.